Welcome to the Thriving Tides podcast. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Julianne. If you're an entrepreneur or busy individual looking for self-care ideas, you're in the right place.
And we can't wait to share our experiences with you.
Cheers, Stephanie.
Cheers.
Let's talk about the things we're afraid of.
Oh, gosh. Well, today we are drinking because something really exciting is happening today.
Yeah.
Or happened, I guess.
Yeah.
Pretense.
Thank goodness for Facebook and Instagram memories to
Really,
remind us that today is exactly 1 year, one whole year from when we published our first episode of Thriving Tides.
Woo!
Wow.
Which is kind of like great that we're also doing a fear episode because there is a lot of fear in starting something new.
Ooh, it still comes up a year later.
A year.
Yeah.
Sorry, that still blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like this whole year has just flown by.
Yeah. So we're drinking bubbles to celebrate.
Yes, we are drinking the bubbly.
The bubbly.
But not the bubbly seltzer drink.
The fun bubbly.
The fun bubbly.
Yes. And we're going to talk about what we're afraid of.
Ugh. It's funny because when you put this in the ideas, I totally went literal with it. I'm like, I'm afraid of deep water. But then I started reading like your notes on it and I'm like, ooh, this sounds really interesting. So where did you kind of get this idea of this topic?
So I was listening to one of Brene Brown's podcasts. She's awesome. And she has multiple podcasts, so I can't remember which one it was. But she was interviewing an author, Pippa Grange. I might be saying her name last. Grange. And she is the author of the book that's called Fearless.
Ooh, okay.
Not fearless, but fearless.
I need to read that.
2 different words. I know, it's also on my reading list. And it was just overall a really great episode, but I also really enjoyed the fact that they said that when it comes down to it, everybody has 2 main fears. One is the fear of dying, and the other is the fear of abandonment.
Interesting.
Yeah. And with the abandonment, they also said that it could actually mean rejection. Ooh. And that hit me hard because as an entrepreneur and just as a human being, that's one of my big fears for sure. And I think knowing that we have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to our podcast, I thought this might resonate for them. And it'd be really interesting for us just to be really vulnerable and talk about what scares us, what we're afraid of. We got some responses from our community as well in terms of what comes up for them. And kind of cool that it lines up with our 1 year anniversary and we can talk about what we were feeling a year ago.
Really though.
And how, certain things can get us through that. But then there's other times that like taking that next big step, more fear pops up again.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't think it ever fully goes away.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Fear.
So there's my inspo.
Oh man. Fear.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin? Because I feel like it's one of those things, too, that fear and having different fears is so, not generational, but like, as you evolve as a human being, your fears kind of start to change. And like, especially as an entrepreneur and learning new things, like my fears have also evolved a little bit, which I think is kind of interesting. So it's like, where do you even begin, really, when it comes to fear? Like, yes, there's the literal fear, but then the intangible fear that we feel as entrepreneurs or even people that are just, working day-to-day lives.
Yeah. And it can show up in other parts of your life too, right? It's not necessarily just with your work, whether you work for yourself or for someone else, but it's like in your relationships, in everything.
Yeah.
Everything. So if you think back to when Summer Street Creative was just an idea in your brain.
Oh. There was so much fear, imposter syndrome, sleepless nights. And yeah, I think it was the biggest thing was the fear of judgment. Really was like, I don't think people are going to like me or they're not going to want to actually pay me for what I do. I'm not that talented. There's so many other talented people out there. Like, why would they pick me? So then it's that fear that like, and like I mentioned a couple episodes ago, I can't remember which one, but this isn't the first time I tried to do my own business. Like I've tried to do freelance design like a couple times before I actually did Summer Street Creative.
Right.
And everything that stopped me was fear, which is like wild now that I think about it. And
yeah,
I made such a big deal out of it for no reason. It's like, why do we do that?
Well, and the fact that the fear stopped you before, then you were collecting evidence that you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're like, well, didn't do it before, so why should I be able to do it now?
Yeah.
Like, what's different about me now? And that can happen a lot too, right? But that's the sad part, and the hard part is that, yeah, we do face challenges and they don't always turn out. And then if we start collecting that evidence and we start seeing that, oh, wait, I actually can't do this, we start to believe it.
Yeah.
Which then makes us play really small.
Play really small. Yeah. Yeah, then you don't take the big risks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Man.
And so something got you through that, right? you launched it. You put it out there.
I did. Yeah.
I still remember watching some of your first videos. I didn't even really know you then. I just knew who you were from that one night that we played games at the farm.
Oh my goodness. Wow. And that's like over 3 years ago now, too, which is like even more insane.
It's wild.
But like, I think about beginning stuff and how terrified, but I was putting on a face that like I was perfectly fine. And I think that also probably plays a factor in it too, is that we're not always, and we talked about this a little bit in the imposter syndrome too, we don't always talk about our fears because it thinks that like we think that we're then being too vulnerable and people won't appreciate us, or that if we say the things that we're scared of, that, you know, people will see us as weak.
Right.
So, of course, here I am putting on this big front that, oh, I know what I'm doing, hire me, blah, blah, blah. Even though inside I'm like, I don't know if I could do anything. Ah.
Yeah.
I have the credentials. I know what I'm actually really doing, but why am I so fearful and holding myself back? And I do kind of wonder what sometimes, like, what I could be capable of if I didn't always have the fear attached to it. So.
Well, what is that saying? Like, everything you ever wanted is on the other side of fear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. It's like, how do you get
past that
across? It's like, what is that other side? How do I get there? Because that fear is such a block for so many of us. And it sounds like yours shows up a lot as imposter syndrome, but then it's also just like, who am I to do this? What can I really do? Or there's so many things coming up in my head right now. And that judgment, do you think that your fear of other people judging you then makes you judge yourself?
Oh, totally. I was watching a TikTok, of course, the other day, and she made like a really cool point, like how you shouldn't ever tell yourself no for other people. So, like, if you are going to say, like, apply for a job that you might think that you don't actually qualify for, and you say, oh, I'm not qualified for it, so I'm going to say no. If you keep saying no to yourself, guaranteed you probably would have got the job, possibly, if they were just looking for exactly a person like you because you fit in their company culture and stuff. Like, so why are you always saying no for yourself? Let other people tell you no. Because at least then you tried. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that makes complete sense. Why am I always saying no for myself? And I do that all the time.
You do?
There are times where, like, there's a really cool job and I say no because I'm a little bit scared because it's a little bit out of my comfort zone. And then I'm thinking, like, later, that would have been a really cool opportunity. Why did I say no to myself? I didn't even ask more about it or anything like that.
Yeah, like you're denying yourself that creative process or that opportunity to grow and try something that is outside your comfort zone.
Exactly.
That you may love, you may also hate.
Exactly. And then I know for next time, right?
Yeah, you'll never know. I like that flip of, let other people say no to you. But that's scary too.
That is so terrifying. And that's the thing, like, they are going to technically judge you on that. But I think that's where it comes back to, like, you kind of have to just be your, as like cliche and how, like, I know that it's the worst advice, is that you have to kind of just be yourself and be okay with that. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea or what you think you're going to be great for. Some people might have other ideas for that because they have a different lifestyle, they live a different way, and there's nothing that you can do about that. And like, I was like, oh, okay, that kind of makes a lot of sense, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know, what are your thoughts?
So many. Yeah, I'm just going to dive in and share a little bit about what my fears are too, because I think that'll help explain my thoughts.
Yeah.
Like my biggest one, like that abandonment, like I said, if you frame it in the sense of rejection, is like, ooh, dagger through my heart.
Yeah.
And that comes down to like, I see it also as disappointment. I don't like disappointing others. And I don't even like the thought of the possibility of disappointing others.
Wow.
Namely my parents.
Oh.
Hope they're not listening.
And that's so sad because you can tell how proud they are of you. But like that's all in your head. And the voices in your head are saying they're going to disapprove of this. Yeah. But like here you are running like freaking 3 businesses, 2 businesses and like kicking ass.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, you're still worried about the disapproval. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I know. And I think it's a little better. Like, I remember the day that I told my dad that I, like, quit my job and started, like, full-time self-employed life.
Yeah.
And he just, like, and it wasn't even that he was disappointed. He was afraid for me, right? That was his fear showing up of, you know, is this the right step for her? There's a lot of unknown. He doesn't fully understand how coaching works and how someone can make a life out of that. And
it's so new to him. Like, he doesn't know what that is. Like, yeah, I guess like his generation wouldn't really know. It's
not traditional, right?
Yeah.
So I get it. It was his fear, but I was absorbing it as disappointment. Right? So it's like just the way that I was interpreting it, I think. So they're like that big one, right? And I've always done like what I was supposed to do with my quotation marks or what I thought I was supposed to do. It's like, okay, I finished high school. I got my university degree. I got my master's. I got a good job. You know, was in a long-term relationship, bought the condo, did the things, and then was like, I'm not happy.
Yeah, I'm not fulfilled. This isn't working.
Shit. Like, what happened here, right? I did all the things I was supposed to do, but it's not adding up. And so even that was kind of like the first step of like, okay, remove myself from the unhappy relationship. Remove myself from living across the country, like all those things. But it was like very scary to do all of that too.
Oh, totally.
But I find if you have something that's really exciting on the other side, it helps. That's the thing that helps propel you through that fear, right? That's where that excitement is on the other side. But sometimes you don't have that pull. You don't really know what it is.
Yeah.
For me, it was like, oh, Dave's there.
Yeah.
Everything will be fine.
And like worst case, you still had your parents there too. And like they would still support you.
Exactly. So I had a safety net.
Yeah.
Right. Which isn't always there.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're just free falling and not really knowing if there's something that's going to catch us.
Yeah.
Hopefully if you're literally doing that, you do have like a parachute on your back.
Please wear a parachute.
Skydiving is amazing.
Yeah. 10-10.
But in the, you know, the more figurative point of view, what is that safety net? We don't always have one. And we don't always need one, but we think we do. Because that's just kind of the way that we're programmed. I also worry about disappointing clients, right? Like I can, like, especially with the coaching, like it's such a new area for many people. And there's not a, like, you're going to get this logo or you're going to have this website or there's nothing tangible that I'm delivering to a client whenever I coach them.
True.
So I don't know when we're meeting for the first time and I'm explaining how it all works, if they're interpreting what I'm saying in the way that I mean it or what their true expectations are on the other side. So I'm like, oh my God, are they going to be disappointed after all these sessions are done and they don't have a perfect life? Because that's not what I promised.
Yeah.
That is not what I promise. But it can get misconstrued. And when there's not that tangible, pretty little package that you hand over, there is that big fear of like, oh, were they actually happy or are they actually disappointed and wondering why they invested all that money for me to coach them?
But has anyone ever said that to you, that they were?
No.
So was this an expectation that you're like putting on yourself?
Oh, probably. Yeah.
Because I feel like that's the thing too, like with coaching, most people that do look like to acquire a coach, they know what they're getting into, I feel like. Sometimes people get their consultants and that's a whole different bag of worms. But like, is that an expectation that you're putting on yourself that like you need to you know, fill whatever that their expectation is.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough. It's scary. And then that kind of feeds into my fear of not being enough.
Yeah.
Which is weird to say out loud.
Which is crazy because you like bend over backwards and have a really full schedule to make sure that you're still being enough for even like your family and friends and still filling everyone else's cup too.
Yeah. So
it's like it's interesting because I wouldn't picture that as your fear because I feel like you are enough. Well, you are, but
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like that's my doer in me, I think, right? It's like if I just keep doing, then
it's okay.
I don't really have to think about this empty feeling over here because there's no space for it. Or it's a really weird dynamic.
But then that's why you take those walks that like you did for yourself by yourself. That probably helped a little bit in like your needing to be enough, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah, big time. It's just that reflective time.
Yeah.
Summer is so busy.
Yeah.
I hate the word busy, but I'm saying it.
What, like, there's no other word. I hate using that word too. The other day, just a little side tangent.
Yeah.
I don't even know what word to say, but it is busy. Like, I don't know what other word.
Yeah.
Full.
It's just a lot
full.
happening. Things are happening.
Too.
Which, it is what it is. And it's all choices that I've made. I build my own schedule.
Yeah.
I chose to take certification for CTI throughout the summer whenever I'd be running a tourism business and also wanting to hang out with people when they come to visit and all that kind of stuff. So
and also have a little bit of a summer for yourself.
A little bit. Luckily I haven't missed too much, or like I don't really feel like I've been missing out on anything yet. I'm feeling very tired already and I'm like, oh, it's the first week of August and I need not just sleep, I need like that restoration.
Yeah.
I posted a little bit about that on my own Instagram a little while back about like how we're not tired, we're depleted, right? And I'm like starting to tip into that depletion zone because I'm trying to not disappoint people and I'm trying to feel like I'm enough and I'm trying to like overcome all these fears. And sometimes we work too hard to overcome our fear or to even just avoid facing it at all. And then we're kind of like hurting ourselves in that game too.
Mm-hmm. That's so fair. True.
Yeah. It's real fun. Should we talk a little bit about the fears that were coming up for us a year ago sitting in this closet?
Oh, so many. Definitely, again, the fear of judgment. I feel like that's like my main fear with anything is just being judged. And that was my biggest one is like, are people going to think that we're just imposters talking about self-care? Because like here I was like still learning everything for myself. That was a big fear. A fear that no one was going to listen. I honestly thought that we'd maybe have at most 2 to 5 listens and then another 5 for me like trying to listen.
You.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Our moms.
My mom doesn't even listen to the podcast.
Mine did. She stopped. I told her that was okay though. I was like, you're not exactly our target market.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate when you do listen, but don't feel bad for not listening to everything.
Exactly. But like we have a pretty loyal following, which thank you guys so much for continuing to listen. Like it's absolutely, it warms my heart. Like I honestly, we're almost at, what is it, like 5,000?
Almost at 5,000 downloads.
Which that to me was like, whoa.
Yeah. Every time I look at the numbers, I'm just like
what?
When did, how, what?
How? Right? And like, so to think like back then, that fear that like, we're just going to be putting content out and no one's going to care.
Yes.
Was huge. And like, even now it's a lot easier because we also got like the feedback and like, we've had a couple people say that we've been helping them and stuff. So that kind of reassures. So the fear is it's gone, which is good.
Yeah.
But
mostly.
Like,
but I mean, there's still like, we still have big goals that we're trying to achieve here too.
Yeah.
How do we get like silenced air conditioning in here? That's a goal that I have now.
Gosh.
It's really warm.
So hot. So hot in here.
When it's 30 degrees outside and we're holed up in the closet, we're still loving it.
A year ago today, we were already experiencing the sauna.
Right? Yeah. And yet we persevered.
We persevered through it.
But yeah, the fear of failure rings true for me, like that. Just like, oh my goodness, like, yeah, what if nobody listens? It was like that, you know, are we biting off more than we can chew? Are we like crazy to think that we have enough to even say, or that we'll be able to keep coming up with the topics that people will be interested in? What if nobody wants to be a guest because we knew we were going to really want to do that? And it's like, what if people are just like, that's not worth my time. Why would I want to do that? Right. So it's like, that's that rejection piece, I guess, too, right? Like the literal rejection of guests saying no, or of people just like not wanting to listen, or, you know, abandoning us midway through an episode because they're like, who are these people?
Yeah.
And that may even be happening.
Oh, totally.
But it doesn't happen to our faces. So it's like, what do you do?
And it's just like I mentioned before, like we can't please everybody. Like there might be times where perhaps you're listening and you disagree with our point. But that's another why we also invite you guys to also put your comments on Instagram as well.
Please,
so please follow us if you haven't already on Instagram, because we always fill out little questions so that you can have your input in the show. Because it's the thing too, we do want your guys' opinions and thoughts on everything, because we do understand that, yeah, sometimes you're probably going to be like, they don't know what they're talking about. And
we're usually the first to admit it, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, the thing is, I might not know what I'm talking about. So I think that part of it's kind of mitigating that. But anyways,
I have another weird thing that I don't like, and it might kind of align with the whole like fear of judgment, but it's the whole being embarrassed thing.
Ooh.
I do not like being embarrassed. Like I really, 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 really hate it.
Really?
Yeah. And so sometimes I won't try things that I think I'm not going to be good at if there's people around.
Okay.
Because I don't know. I think it comes back to like childhood and being like the young sister and being picked on a lot. And that like still resonates with me big time. And I find like being back home, certain people that I run into and stuff, like that brings back a lot of those memories, and I don't like it. And so I'll do anything to avoid being embarrassed.
Really? Which might include saying no to some things that you're like kind of excited about but not certain about, perhaps.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's weird to say that out loud.
No, I don't think so. Because like, yeah, I guess it is like part of like the judgment aspect too. Like, yeah, if you, I would have to agree with you too. I hate feeling embarrassed. So sometimes I won't even voice my opinion on something. Like I used to work in an office where there's a bunch of creative people, and I would actually hold back like ideas that I would have because I didn't want them to think that they were stupid ideas. And I'm just like thinking back now, I'm like, who cares? Who really cares? If they don't like it, they don't like it. At least I tried something.
Yeah. Hindsight's always 20/20.
20/20, yeah.
But when you're in the moment and there is that true, like, it's like, well, you come back to like why people are reactive instead of creative, right? If I bring out my coaching platform a little bit, but when we're in a reactive state, like we're really trying to protect the ego. And so things feel really serious and we're very constricted. And when I'm in that state, like when there's the possibility of being embarrassed, I just play really, really small. But if I could just be playful and laugh at myself and not really care if I'm good at something, like there's so much more opportunity for growth there. But it really sometimes depends on like who's around or what's the platform or what's going on. And that's something that I want to continue working on, because I don't want to be holding myself back just because I'm scared someone's going to laugh at me. Right. Do I really care?
Yeah, so they're probably not going to remember anything at the end of the day.
Probably
They're
not.
not going to be like, oh, remember a year ago when you did that thing, Julianne?
Right?
How embarrassing for you.
Ugh.
They would never.
I know, but it's like
everyone
right in
cares
me.
about what's going on in their life, and I need to, that's something I try to like remind myself all the time. People really, in the grand scheme of things, don't care. That sounds so harsh. They don't care about you. They care about themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are we always trying to think that like everyone's gonna go home and think about what you did today?
I know. I know, right? They're like, it's like the furthest thing from them. And even if they are, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, that's a waste of their time to be like, oh, remember what Steph and Julianne did yesterday? Those idiots. Like, give her.
Really, though.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's crazy. And I think a lot of it probably comes from the past, though, too, right? Like, there's a lot of, like, really, like, I don't have a whole lot of memories from my childhood, but many of them that are vivid are ones where I was embarrassed by something, or I felt dumb, or, you know, whatever. And it's just like, ugh, hello, like, I'm 36 years old. When do I get to get over this? Time for a therapy session.
Right. Oh, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. How do you, like, what do you do? So you say, you know, you kind of like tell yourself that it doesn't really matter what people think. Is there anything else that you do to try to combat some of these fears when they come up for you?
Yeah, so I think definitely like not reminding myself not that it doesn't really matter what people think, but then also remembering like technically I already kind of fail if I don't try. Because that's my biggest thing is I'm always worried. And the problem is it does come with anxiety, unfortunately. Like, as much as I can tell myself, like, there's just in my brain there's a chemical imbalance. Okay, so there's, even though if I can try my best, I'm still going to have to, you know, fight it a little bit more. So having like those kinds of reminders, I do kind of put post-it notes every once in a while. Like, so for example, I have a post-it note in my office that says like growth mindset. You don't know until you start trying. Because I always say no to myself more so than anything. Yeah. So that has really helped. But again, like, that's why there's like medication and stuff to kind of help that. Yeah. And that's the thing, like, even with like anxiety and depression, it's super hard because I find that like fear is like the biggest catalyst, if you will, of my kind of like spiral. But yeah, I don't know.
And does that impact you? And maybe this changes depending on the time of the year and what you've got going on and stuff, but like, would that be a daily, a weekly, a monthly impact on you and your business, or is it kind of sporadic?
To be honest, that's a really weird question for me because like it's kind of off and on, and sometimes there's certain things that kind of trigger, especially my anxiety. So like, for example, just the other week I had a really busy or full week and I was worrying about things that hadn't already happened. And then that then sparked another worry. And then that sparked a fear. And then all of a sudden it was spiraling then to the point that I at one point thought that someone was definitely going to be breaking into my house and taking my cat.
Oh, rhubarb.
Yeah, rhubarb, because she was home alone. I'm like, yeah. Oh. And the thing is, like, I can try my best to like mitigate it and kind of sort of prepare for it. But sometimes it's just, if there's a trigger for myself, or sometimes it's also just shit happens and you're just having an off day, like even if you don't have any mental health disorders or anything like that, like, you can also just have a really off day where everything, you can try your best to try to be happy, but it's just not connecting, and you just it's just not my day today. And like, so that's when, exactly, we all kind of have those. And now that I've kind of like know where I'm at mentally, and like I've been starting to find better tools and stuff like that, I also have a really great support system too. Like, I can call up my mom or call up James, or like I can call up you, especially if I'm having like a crisis with like work. You understand me in that sense, whereas they don't really. So, like, it's hard because I want to be like, oh, this exactly is what triggers everything. But, for example, I could possibly be anxious later. I don't know. Yeah. And then that triggers that fear. Yeah. And especially the worry. I worry about, like, things that I shouldn't have to worry about, which I think worry is a big proponent to fear in a way. So.
And does that come up for you? So like you had a really full / busy week, and therefore maybe you weren't putting in the time for your self-care and your downtime and your reflection. And does that trigger the worry and then the fear and all that even more when you're not doing those common practices for yourself?
Oh, totally. I mean, like, I find it, and I don't really know if anyone else feels this, if you have anxiety or depression, but like I find it impossible to mentally get into, like, say, a meditation. It's like I am constantly fighting, like, why am I doing this? I don't deserve this. I don't, So, like, for example, like we were camping. I should be happy, but the whole entire time for like part of it, until like I finally talked to James a lot in the tent about it, I had to, like, I was constantly thinking about it and worrying that, like, they're gonna hate me, I'm not good at my job, and blah blah blah. And it's like the expectation that, like, they're gonna be disappointed in me because I couldn't make one meeting even though I literally had no Wi-Fi. My hands were literally
There's so
tied.
much out of your control.
And I told people ahead of time that I was camping, so like I shouldn't be upset, but like but that's the trials of, like, when you are owning a business and you have a little bit of anxiety, like,
Big time.
I'm still figuring it out. I don't have all the answers, of course, but so far the tools that I have so far are working. So.
Yeah. And they're not always going to be the perfect tool or the perfect solution every single time, but if you can keep those practices, then I think that probably helps mostly, right? That's definitely something, like, I've been feeling lately is I had a call with Leona, the joy guru, last night, and I was just like, I just feel like I'm on a conveyor belt. Just feel like life just is happening, and I'm just, like, along for the ride. And not that it's bad, like, I'm doing things that I enjoy, but I just don't feel like I'm in control anymore. Like, I don't feel like I'm, like, making the conscious choice day after day of, like, what my day looks like or what I'm doing. It's just like happening. I feel very, like, victim mentality when it comes to that, like, if you think about the drama triangle. But it was just like, I just don't know what's going on. And so we had a really great session and kind of worked me through that, and came back to, like, I haven't been journaling regularly, and I haven't been like, a lot of my days, especially if I'm working, like, and I'm on for the deep sea, which means, like, the phone is forwarded to me, I'm responsible for the emails, the messages, all that kind of stuff. That is the first thing I do in the morning when I'm on for those, and I need to stop that. I need to give myself that half an hour or an hour to me. And, like, does it really matter that I email? Like, because some of these emails came in at, like, midnight. I don't have to answer them at 6 a.m.
Yeah, you don't. You probably don't even look at it till, like, 10 or 11 their time.
Yeah, like, so it's just this crazy expectation that I put on myself. And then, but also it's, we're in our second pandemic summer. We're not making the money that we used to. So every single person that we book matters. Yeah. To that bottom line, right? Like, we really have a strong goal of breaking even this year. Yeah. And it's going to be really tough to make that goal. So I'm letting that fear drive my behaviors, which then doesn't feel good.
That came up in our questions too. Someone said the fear of money, which that's a scary fear to have. And I totally agree with that fear, because I definitely am always scared of, like, not having enough. Yeah. Which is funny, because, like, technically money is energy, going all woo-woo, but, like, if you're fearful of it, then it'll be fearful of you. Yes. And so, like, if you're pushing it away mentally, no wonder why it wouldn't come to you. But it's so hard to say that, because at the same time, it's like, I have bills to pay.
I am a money magnet. It's like trying to think of all these mantras. It's true, though, right? But, like, especially if you're relying on your business to be your financial freedom, it's scary. And like, that's so, like, one of the people that answered said money and not being able to grow enough of it, and then another person said bills, which essentially is also money, right? So it's that's, like, the biggest. It rings loud and clear for us. Someone else said fire. I get it. Hey, it can be scary too.
Fire, water. Which is funny because here I am, moved from friggin' Alberta prairies. I moved to an island surrounded by like water. I don't understand.
Can you swim?
I can. Like I can swim. I won't drown. Sort of. But like I'm terrified, especially deep water. Like I realized I am terrified of it when I watched a video, and it was like you might be afraid of deep water if you watch, like when you watch this and you get terrified. I had to turn it off in like the first 5 seconds. It's like deep water.
Is it on
and
TikTok?
Like, no, it was on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Oh my, like my heart was beating, and like. Yeah, like even if we go on like James's dad's boat, like I'm just like, I hate this. One time it's a pontoon boat, so it kind of caught a little bit of water. I was like,
and you're just in
out.
like the West River on that.
Yeah, and I was holding like, I think at the time I was like with like the whole family, and I was holding one of the either the niece or the nephew. Yeah, and I'm just like
should I be responsible for this
because I'm freaking out. I literally went like, here you go, Hannah.
Yeah.
It's your child.
You're good.
Sorry.
You're good. That's hilarious.
Like terrified of water. I don't understand how people go sailing and stuff like that. I just, something about water scares the shit out of me. But yeah, it's like, if you're listening and you said fire, I understand like the elemental fear.
Yeah, that's true.
It's terrifying.
It's a real thing. Yeah. It's a real thing.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah, so many things. I'm like, it's funny because then Dave asks me like what I'm afraid of. And like, besides the like, all that other really heavy stuff that I said, like, there's not like I'm not afraid of like spiders or like, I mean, I'm not afraid of snakes. I'm not like, please let me hold your snake. But I'm not like, oh my God, get that thing away from me either. Right. Like it's not, I don't have any of those types of fears. Yeah. But yeah, it's all the emotional and mental stuff for me.
That's such a Sagittarius thing to say. Feelings. I don't like them.
Ugh, feelings are terrible. Learning.
Listen to our astrology episode, definitely, if you want to learn more about your signs and why I say that about Julianne.
I felt so seen.
Yeah.
Which also is uncomfortable.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I think like, I'm just like bringing it back in. My other fear is, so I'm kind of in a transitionary period with my coaching practice right now, and like really my business and what I want to do. And like I'm feeling really drawn to doing more consulting work, but I'm not wanting to let go of the coaching, and I don't know what that looks like. And I want to try different things. And then I have the fear of people being like, what is this girl doing?
Yeah.
Or the fear of like, am I just too afraid to fully dive into coaching, and that's why I'm like distracting myself by this? Or like, what is it that's going on? And like, so these are the fears that I'm like working out myself right now, just to be super vulnerable and out there.
Yeah.
I don't know what things are going to look like. And I worry that publicly figuring it out is going to hinder my reputation.
But the thing is, people are always quitting, starting new things. And like, if you're not feeling called to it, there must be a reason. It's like the whole like trust your gut thing.
Yeah.
If you're feeling called to kind of pivot a little bit, then why not?
Yeah.
Right. And I totally get that fear though, because like sometimes I'm like, I just want to create cross stitch patterns.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh wait, people be like, why did she stop doing Summer Street Creative then?
Right.
I'm taking on a part-time graphic design job, and I'm scared that people are going to judge me for taking that because all my business isn't successful. It is. I also just miss being part of like a team.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
To be perfectly clear and honest, but like at the same time, I get that fear of like, what are other people going to think when they see that I'm kind of pivoting everything in my business. Yeah. And it's scary because, like, you built this whole entire thing, you're proud of it, and you don't want people to think that you failed. Oh, I hate that word, failed. But it's like, you didn't. You're just following what's making you happy in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, right where I am right now is, like, I just need to give myself that permission. Yeah. And not be afraid. And it's so weird because like I talk to my like colleagues and my peers in my certification program right now, and they've been coaching me through this too, which is so cool because I get like awesome coaching every 2 weeks from these people. And we get to coach one another, and they're just like, you're a really good coach. Like, why are you even questioning yourself? And then that makes me feel bad for questioning myself. And I'm just like, just because you're good at something doesn't mean it's your life passion though, right? So it's just like figuring all that out. And I love the clients that I have right now, but I think it's my pull to my value of variety in that I couldn't picture coaching all day, every day, and that being the one thing that I do. So I just need to like figure out what is that diversity and what does that look like, and hope that the right people will just be there with me. Yeah. And I'll figure it out, but it's scary.
Totally.
And then like, as I transition this, I'm like, okay, how much money do I have in the bank right now? And then how much do I have coming in? And like, how much of a gap can I take? And it comes back to the money again, right? But I mean, I don't want to live on the street. Yeah. It is a real driver.
We want to go traveling. We want to go do our experiences and stuff. And
yeah. But I'm learning in like, even through all this conversation, it's like, we can't have the fear be the thing that guides us through our lives. Like, but it is always going to show up for us, especially when we're taking a big leap. Yeah. So it's like having those people that you can call and rely on, and reminding yourself that like, whatever, as long as you try it, then you know for yourself whether or not you like it, whether or not you're good at it. You're only going to learn from it. It's like, bring back that growth mindset, like your sticky note says, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And everybody has fears.
Yeah. We
that
all do.
Also is very comforting.
Exactly.
In a weird way. Yeah.
And like, we would love to pass it off to you guys as well. Do you have any other fears? Do you resonate with anything that we've said and shared of our fears?
Yeah. Please tell us all your deep, dark, scary fears.
Even if it's in a private message.
Yes. Yeah.
We don't expect you to be all like, this is all my fears.
No.
This was very hard. I'm sure this was also a fearful thing for you to do, to also talk about your fears as well.
Yeah.
As a Sagittarius.
Yep. Yep.
So, yay.
But I'm trying to do this stuff. So thank you.
So glad for Julianne.
And thanks for entertaining this idea. I thought it was interesting. And I love that it landed on our 1-year anniversary.
It was perfect. Chef's kiss.
Yeah. With the bubbles.
Yeah.
Yeah, bubbles.
Cheers to a year and another.
And here's to a million more.
5,000 years. Well, we're gonna run out of topics.
Yes. Yeah, we'll keep going until we run out of things to say.
Exactly.
Which is never gonna happen.
Really. And as always, if you guys really like this podcast, this episode, please like, comment, share, subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts or anything, please leave a review. That does really help us, and we would absolutely appreciate it.
Yes. But
with that being said,
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And don't let your fears control you. We got this.
You got this.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Thriving Tides. Hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode.
Follow us, Thriving Tides, on Facebook, Instagram, and now YouTube to stay connected. And remember, don't fight the rip currents.